Okay, so for this video, we'll do an overview of a challenge put out by Hack the Box this weekend as part of a Capture the Flag. So this is a web challenge, and it focuses largely on GraphQL and then something called DOM clobbering, which I didn't know about until I got into it, and it's pretty fascinating. So without further ado, we'll get working on this box. So for this challenge, they did give us a source code, so I'll unzip it, and I'm going to review the source code first. That's generally where I start. I'm just more comfortable that way. Some people like to start with the website. I like the code. We'll look at the file, just kind of get a sense. So there's running a Maria database service and Chromium. Some setup. There's going to be a flag copied to the root and the working directory to the app folder. So the challenge directory to the app folder. And then looks like npm install the legacy peer dependencies. And then entry point script to run. So we'll just check that out. So this is just, looks like it's seeding a database, MySQL database. So we have users, products, and into the products we're going to put some placeholder. There's nothing interesting here. And that permission graph is nothing new either. So just basically getting the project ready. What else do we have? We can look. Let's go into the challenge. Config is basically not related. So we'll look at index. What is index? We're bringing in some roots, database, instantiating the database, and then auto escaping our views. And so we'll have to check out the roots file and database file probably. This is just standard app stuff. We'll check out the roots first. I think there's only one file in here, so yeah. So, we're using GraphQL, and there's some kind of authentication middleware. So I'll check out auth next. GraphQL schema is coming from up here, so we'll have to check out that helper, see what's being mounted and being resolved. And on the main one, looks like we just have an index, product, way to get products, a login page, two-factor authentication, a dashboard, a way to add products. These products seem to have some kind of, I think Joy is some kind of form or validation library. So it's just going to validate that stuff is what it is, string or number. And then down here we have description. Looks like it can have some kind of HTML value, so it gets filtered on that. Check that out. And then it adds the potion to the database, catches an exception, and then once it's added, it then gets its ID back. Probably could have got it in when it was adding it. You could get a callback. Anyways, next, an admin reviews it. And so the bot goes and previews an item, and once that bot is done, then you get your response. So basically, there's some kind of automation happening after you add a product. So once we get a response, we should know if we basically did the right thing or not, or for an ad to trigger an admin review. Okay. And then down here, there's just products preview. So it gets the product by the ID. Looks like there's another filter here happening on some title, description, and keywords. And then that's getting rendered as it's getting past the product HTML as meta, and the product is getting past this product. And there's a logout. So pretty standard roots, some interesting stuff to keep in mind. Let me just go to views since we did roots. The one that's interesting is probably going to be product, because that's going to be displaying user input. So here we have meta being marked as safe. So initially I thought that meant that it was treating it different, that it was treating it um, insecurely, which I think it is. It basically says is like we're trusting, you can trust this input to be HTML safe, so don't bother doing any kind of escaping on it. Whereas we have the name, which does not have safe on it. So this will get escaped. So if there's any kind of funny business in the name, it essentially gets escaped. Product description is being marked as safe, so that means basically, from what I can tell, those are probably the two fields that we'll want to play around with, because they're not being, there's no escape being done by this the view framework, and they're being marked as safe. So I'm assuming that's probably where we'll spend some time. But we still have to log in first, so let's keep looking around. We did use, next we should do the middleware, because I remember that authentication one. So I'll just go directly into it. So it's loading a JWT helper. I think this should probably be indented like that. It's the same way. So it's loading this helper. If there's no cookie, then it checks to see if the originating URL is GraphQL, otherwise return next. So that's interesting. Maybe we can do some redirect or just bypass. Otherwise, it says you're unauthenticated. If you do have a cookie, it's going to then take your cookie and see if it's verified using the JWT helper. So I'm going to grab a user, and same thing here. If the originating URL is GraphQL or 2FA, next. So maybe we can bypass. We can somehow spoof this original URL. And if the user is false, so if the user is not verified, just redirect to login. Otherwise, if the user, this is, then it catches the error, I guess. And if the originating URL is, there is an error anywhere, I guess on the JWT token, it will catch it. And if it's an originating URL, it'll just go to next. Okay, that's probably because, that's interesting. Otherwise, it'll redirect to a logout. And if there's any uncatched errors, it will redirect to logout. So essentially, if the JWT verifier has a problem, I think it just logs you out. We check out helpers JWT. Yeah, so there's a sign and verify basically, so it's a signed token, so we'll be able to spoof it. Inside helpers, we'll check out the GraphQL just to see what these endpoints are. So there's a response type, which is message and token. Then there's query type, and then just a dummy query, so probably part of, we're not going to use queries. Then there's a login mutation, which accepts the username and password. Then it goes into, basically, if it's authenticated, if the user can log in, then it will create a token, sign it with the username, call it verify false, and add that to add the token to the session cookie. The next one is verify 2FA. So this takes an argument OTP, has a string, and the user needs to exist, otherwise it won't run this. And it will do something called db get OTP key. So probably just get it from the database. Then it calls this OTP helper to verify the secret OTP key against what was passed. And if it is verified, then it signs a new token with the username and verified as true. And it resolves it as a message. So that's interesting. So I'll check out the OTP helper. Okay, authenticator options digits 4. So I think this means like when you have the two-factor authentication, typically it's a 6-digit rotating number. So this is probably a 4-digit rotating number. So I'll just keep that in mind. All the others just seem to be API calls on this authenticator library, and I'm just going to trust that that's all fine and dandy, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. But it's good to know that there's 4 digits. The last helper was the filter helper. And so this is calling something called DOM purify. And essentially it looks like it's allowing the user to input some stuff, and this is going to be a library that takes input and I guess allows these tags in the input. So some kind of like basic markdown. Filter HTML. And so if I remember, this is getting called on the description attribute, and filter meta is getting called on some meta attributes. And it's allowing name, content, property, HTTP equivalent. So this is kind of interesting because HTTP equivalent, I think, is essentially allows you to possibly set headers that within the meta field. So this is something that I'm going to want to research more into because there's probably some opportunity here if user can set an HTTP equiv. Then I look down here, and what essentially this filter metadata is getting called by generate metadata, which is passing title, description, keys, which is coming from the product. And here you can see an example of that HTTP equiv, where it's content security policy, and it's essentially saying allow any JavaScript that exists on the page to run, as well as any inline JavaScript to run. So I'm seeing that maybe if I can somehow inject my own content security policy under this one, maybe it'll take priority. I'm not sure, but I'll want to play around with that. Maybe, I don't know. That's kind of a potential. I can also do a redirect or like a refresh to maybe refresh the whole page to my server, and I can kind of get the contents from that refresh to see if maybe there's something on the admin's page that I can use. So that is interesting. And so talking about refresh and admin, I think we'll just take a look at the bot. So this is basically running Puppeteer is kind of like a automated browser, and I think it uses Chromium. And so essentially, this is just programming, simulating a user. So the bot is going to, so when a product is created, it's going to preview the product by essentially going to the page or creating a page, I guess. Then it's going to generate a token by signing its username as admin, verified as true, and then placing a flag inside the cookie as flag. It's going to set that cookie on the page and call it session. So this tells me I'm gonna need JavaScript execution because cookies are not visible in the document itself. Well, they're not visible in the, I guess, XML, HTML portion of the document. So I'd have to execute JavaScript to get the cookie and then somehow send that back to my server. And here I can see basically it goes to the product and it waits either 7 seconds or until the network is idle. And then I guess it just closes. So it will visit the page. And so I'm thinking to pass this challenge, I gotta get some JavaScript execution to steal this cookie. So now that I know my scope, I gotta log in and I gotta get JavaScript execution. One thing we didn't check out was the database. Let's see if there's some SQL injection opportunities here. Okay, this is cool. So I do have a username and password I can use right off the bat. And so part of this, I just got to figure out the OTP key, what that is. And I can work with that. This looks like it's using parameterized query. This is also parameterized query. This is interesting in that it's returning the OTP key. Maybe, I don't think, we'll see if what the GraphQL returns when it returns user, but I don't think it's going to give me my key. That would be too easy. Get user returns everything. We'll see what the GraphQL query returns if we can get a user. Get OTP key is used by the 2FA. Get potions is used by The potions endpoint, again, all these are parameterized queries. So get potion by ID. So I'm not seeing anything that add potions. This would be the one. No, these are all parameterized, so I don't think it's going to be to SQL injection. So with that, why don't we check out the page and basically see what we're dealing with. So I put it into burp here. I like to intercept requests. I also intercept responses so I can see it in text form and quickly looking at it. There's some JavaScript here at the bottom, site, global, and then some basic HTML, so nothing too crazy. If I click on one, click on product 6, it's going to get the product. And I'm not seeing a form or anything in here. I'm not seeing any inline JavaScript, so there's some more JavaScript here, but there's nothing you can really do on this form, so nothing too interesting on that. We'll do the login, see what we can get. So go log in and see the login is username and password. So, and there's a lot of JavaScript, which is probably have the login stuff, but why don't we just go log in and see what we do. So it's going to post to GraphQL. So actually, I'm going to take this and I'm going to send it to the repeater. And I'm going to use a different tool for GraphQL because I think Insomnia is better. So we have the endpoint there. I think I can get some more error fetching from 167. Make sure I got the right URL. And we'll see if this one goes through. Take the query. Maybe there's just a problem in the schema. Go into, so GraphQL has an interface that breaks everything down already. So we put the mutation in here and the variables goes in here. So we got username and password, so I'll just send this. 44 found GraphQL. There we go. Okay, so user logged in and it sends me a token. I think if I go to the timeline, it's also setting a cookie. So it set a cookie as that token, so I can essentially make a follow-up call to verify 2FA, OTP, I think it takes OTP, and it can pass me a message and token. So let's put that there. Hold it placeholder while we actually browse, go through the interface. So forward that, get the cookie, gets it set, logged in successfully. See what the rest of the flow is. So next it's getting 2FA, and accept it. So here I'm on the 2FA page. Now, my initial thought was maybe I could just bypass it by going to the dashboard page, and because I'm coming from the 2FA page, it should be okay. So I'll do that. I'll just also say origin 2FA. refer this one are actually 2FA, and it'll say found but redirecting, so I wasn't able. That's going back to login, so I wasn't able to pass that. I think GraphQL was also the other one, so we'll try that. Dashboard. Origin. GraphQL. For GraphQL. And same thing. So just to make sure I have the right headers there, I'm going to go to the home page. And from here I'm going to go to login to see if it's not, okay, so it's not including origin and header. I think maybe this one did. Here, origin. So I need, maybe if I put the full one in. So let's, instead of do a post, let's do get to dashboard. And we're going to say we're coming from GraphQL, because I think that can bypass the cookie. It didn't work. Going back to the login. So, it's interesting. Probably JavaScript on the page. We'll try this one more time. We'll do a get request to dashboard, and we'll say we're coming from 2FA. Still redirection. So, yeah, it doesn't seem to be possible. So, maybe there's something else we gotta look into doing. So I'll go back to the 2FA page. It should accept our cookie. And so we have a code here. So if I enter in the code 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the mutation I put into Insomnia. I just added the string OTP, and it's calling verify 2FA, and it's going to repass a message in token. So if I send this on, it's going to say error invalid OTP supplied. So for the next part, I'm going to go into work in Insomnia, because I think it just does a better job of like syntax highlighting. So here you can see I'm actually able to combine mutations. So I'm logging in and verifying in one. Essentially, this is one request to the server. Now I haven't done it yet, so why don't I just run it? Actually, first I close this error message. I'll pass it. OTP and 1, 2, 3, 4 will be the OTP. So if I hit send, here we have some errors. So when on my verify 2FA call, I had an invalid OTP supplied, but my login user worked, and so it gave me a message and a token. So I can do two methods. Why can't I try two of these? And let's see if I do it like this. OTP2 string band, and okay, it's giving me an error saying field conflict because they have different arguments, use different aliases on the field to fetch both if it was intentional. So the alias essentially looks like this. So this should now work, but let's give me an error because I'm missing OTP2 4321 as a string. So if I send that, I'm getting two error messages and still being able to log in. So why don't I remove that login because we're not going to leave it. So this means if there's 4 there's only 4 digits. I can probably brute force it by essentially passing a whole bunch of these into the query. So to do that though, I'm going to just write a script to create the payload for me, because instead of passing parameters, I can also just do something like this. And so I don't got to worry about like variables anymore. I just like hard coding the argument. And so that'll just keep it a lot simpler. So we'll focus on that. We'll essentially create a payload that we can push into curl, something like this. So we'll want to do a post request with a cookie, application JSON, and we'll just have a query with a whole bunch of, basically a bunch of mutations in them. So to do that, I will batch query creator.python, and we'll go through basically setting up what this should look like. So we'll just do OTP reference is, we'll start off with 000. OTP, this is alias reference, will be 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I'm calling a reference because the way Python works with lists is I'm going to just break this string into a list of characters. And each of those characters will be replaced. OTP char set will be essentially from 0 to 9, and no, I'm in bin. So basically just do this. Okay, so 0 to 9, and then we're going to do an alias char set equals split lines out nicely. A, B, C, D, F, G, H. Should really put N in this. H, I, J, J. So that brings us to what our alias, because we also need to provide a rotating alias. So why don't we do OTP is equal to list OTP reference, and alias is equal to list. I just want to last connection to my keyboard. Okay, list of alias reference. I spelled reference right? I think I did. Okay, so next we basically need to go through and create a loop. So for I, so I'm going to do n is equal to length of OTP char set for I in range n. We're going to do OTP I equals OTP char set. And actually we want the first code just to be part of that. Then we'll do alias 0 equals O equals alias char set I. So to save time in the video, essentially, the server only accepts a certain size of requests, and so in this case, it accepts up to a megabyte of requests. So I have to chunk this into 10 different requests. So I can't send it all as one batch request. I have to send it into 10. So what I will do, and that was just to save time of us having to go through that experiment, I'm going to open a file at each time we change the first index. So that way, essentially, we'll have 10 different files. And we'll call it basically whatever the index is, .graphql. And we'll append. So I have a file. We want to write to the file. Essentially, send it query is equal to mutation. I don't know if I need this. If there's no arguments, mutation, open brackets, and then if I go back to Insomnia, it's just mutation, and then the mutation, and the things that we want back. So that should be good for that. I'll put a space there. We'll write that, and then I'm going to copy this so we can save time. And we got to do this for the next 4 characters. Okay. And this should actually be 2. HJKL. Okay, and then once we've modified all of them, once we've modified the 4th digit, then we will write this mutation into the document, which will be alias join alias plus colon verify to FA OTP colon space. Actually, this needs to be an escaped quote for it to work. Join OTP plus escaped quote, and we'll close in bracket, space, open curly brace, and we just basically want token, closing curly brace, and put a space there. And I think we need it all to be on one line for the way curl works. I'll do that. I'll also print some debugging route mutation for OTP so OTP. And then when we close it, just before we close it, we'll need to do a closing bracket, which would be, this needs to have an opening quote, and a closing bracket, space, bracket, to close it. So then we want to close the file we have. So I think we're good to give this a shot. Let's see in this one. So I think that'll work. Why don't we just test it? So do a curl. Actually, I'm going to set target as the URL, the target that we have here. So this is GraphQL. I'm going to set a cookie as the cookie that we also are using. Is it in the repeater? No. And now I will basically, let's just do a test run with curl. We're going to post it to our target. Oh, we got to set a header of content type application JSON. Cookie is cookie, and our data will be at 0.GraphQL. So this number at JSON. Let's see what this is. See the file I want. GraphQL. GraphQL. I'm in the wrong project. Okay, it did not escape. So that's probably what's causing the problem. Probably because I need to escape the escape. I want a literal backslash, a literal quote. So I'll remove all my GraphQL files, and I will rerun this. And there, now we're escaping those. Okay, so let's try, see if this works. All right, so we got a whole bunch of stuff. If I scroll up in the window, let's see if we get, if it's, no, oh, there's an error, invalid OTP. So what essentially we want to do is, I'll close this, and we'll just do get OTP. Make a quick bash script, which will essentially for in 9, we want 0. Let's do this. Where this is I. I need to do. I'm done. So that should work. Now I don't know if 0 will work. Oh well. So we'll try that. And make it executable. Get, and we'll just put it to a log file. Carl could not resolve host header. So maybe I need to pass the variables directly to it. So t equals t cookie equals cookie. Oh, this is probably not. Oh, whoops. I need $sign. There we go. Now we're getting some requests. So basically what that's doing is it's going to run through, it's going to make the request, basically brute force this OTP, and I'm hoping to get a token response back. So I can open up that report file, and if I'm looking for token, here it is. So we have a token, and so this is what I can use to log in. So if I drop this request, and I'm going to go to dashboard, and I'm going to just set the cookie directly in the browser here. So go to the dashboard, and this looks, welcome back, your products. Cool. So I'll just send that rather than look at it. And we don't have any products yet, so let's add a new potion. And here we are, we're at that form, which we were looking at earlier. So we put a name, which any name will work. XSS test. We have a description for minimal HTML support. So we'll put something in here to test. We'll put the price 0. We have snake charms, that, some keywords, title, and a description. So we'll just put some placeholders, see how this gets rendered. I'm going to send this to the repeater because we'll probably want to play around with that. So we'll pass that along. Now we're looking at the code. The bot should actually look at it, and so it's being reviewed by an admin. and so it has already been reviewed. I'm going to go back to be redirected back to our dashboard, and we can check out our product. So get our product preview and check out what we're looking at. So go to the repeater. You can see category 1. So that was the snake charm thing, I think, and so that's going to get put there. There's our product name, description, which accepts some HTML, and the price is 0. And we'll also hit the meta tag, so title, description, keywords. One thing that's interesting for title and description is I'm not seeing the property attribute, which was in the filter. So I'm wondering if I can't maybe do something funny with either one of these two to try to update the content security. So I will forward that to the browser, and essentially some back and forth to try to figure out where the XSS was. And what I ended up doing is, if we go to the filter helper, you can see that it's basically there's DOM purify. And if I go to the top, so it's come from a library, so I decided, okay, let's just see what version it's at, and 2.36. So with that in mind, DOM purify releases, see it, perfect. It's here, and so 2.36 is all the way down here. So I think it's 2.36. Yeah, 3.6. So there's been a couple of things added since then. So I'm wondering maybe if we can't just get an answer to try to bypass something that's already been patched. So these chores, string improvements, bugged in Safari. We're not using Safari. A tag and adder config options case sensitive when parsing. We're not using that. Bumps and dependencies. Added support for sanitization requiring trusted types. Interesting, but I didn't see that. Added sanitized name props. Added generated types. Updated read. Fixed an issue causing with TypeScript. We're not using TypeScript. Remove bundle types as they cause too much trouble. Okay, bundle types might be interesting. Added new config options. Allow namespaces for better XML handling. Added better detection of template literal. So this was interesting because I know the meta filter is using backtick, so maybe there's something there. And then it said fixed an exception caused by DOM clobbering, and I had no idea what DOM clobbering was. So essentially, every object, every HTML tag in the document also exists as an object on document on window. So you can do window dot whatever the ID of that tag is or whatever the name of that tag is. And so that I'll just show you an example of it. Essentially, I had to do some research to get more in depth into this, but this kind of blew my mind. That basically on the window object, well, actually we gotta look into our source. Let's view source. Let's make that viewable. So where do we have an ID? So here, ID go back. So this ID go back, if we go in here and we go to window.goback, it exists as a link. And window.goback has a value accessible by that. Also, what's interesting, if we do alert window.goback, it alerts what was in the href section. Same thing here. So it's kind of, there's some uniqueness around some of these tags, they're all available on the window. So that made it really interesting, because I'm thinking, okay, maybe there is some way to implement some kind of DOM clobbering XSS. And so to do that, I just decide, okay, let's take a look at what the JavaScript is. And so we have this global JavaScript on the page, which is setting something called potion types. And this doesn't seem interesting, but this was unique. And then if I go to products, I can see when the document's ready, it iterates through potion types, and it's looking for a category that equals category. So this category variable, if we remember, was up here. So if it finds it, it then basically modifies the document to add some information to it. So here it's adding a name, and it's accessing an attribute on the item, on the potion type name. And here it's accessing an attribute on the potion type source. So I know source exists on an image. I think name can exist on any HTML element. So it's just ID that was kind of throwing me, because how can an ID be numerical whereas a category, whereas like in the example I showed, ID here was a string. And so this go back exists on the window. So after some research, let's see, name. I wonder if this will come up. So we have here name as keywords. And so I think if I go onto the window, so it's not there. And essentially, I found out, I'm just going to refresh it. And I go, so we're going to get this back from server, and I'm going to modify this description to include an image where the name equals my image, the ID equals my image ID, src equals does not exist that JPEG. Close it. So if I send that to the browser, on the window now, there exists a my image. So using the name, I can access that off the window, but I can also access it off the ID. So my image ID. So this is the same thing. So it got me thinking. I can just, if I can add an image inside a description with the name as potion type and the ID as a number, I can clobber this function, and then I can maybe inject my own information into one of these tags, and most likely the image tag here, because there's an on-error attribute that I could leverage to then execute JavaScript. So how do I do that? Because this is getting set on the window, and if I look down here, it's the last thing that's loaded. So after the page is loaded, then this JavaScript runs. So that then took me to this meta section where if I can modify this to maybe overwrite what's being said here, I might be in luck. So why don't I needed to do some research on this, and we go look at what a content security policy is, and essentially you can, here's an example. So you can, if you want all content to come from the site's own origin, you can set something like default source as self. And you can set a whole bunch of different things. You can do it different domains as well. So, or a specific file on a domain somewhere in here. So I'll go to script source, and then this is basically what we're using script source, and the source, and then the source can be one of the values listed in CSP source values. And here it gives me, you can list a specific source to the JavaScript file. So what I can do is I can only allow this JavaScript to run, and also jQuery, because it needs jQuery using the $ accessor, and then I can kind of clobber it myself. So how I tested this is essentially, through, this is, I guess, an existing request. So I just basically would re-request the page, and then I get the HTML back, and right here, I decided to basically replace this title with my own, and we'll do unsafe inline because I do need to run JavaScript inside the page, and I just want to grab this HTTP 167.99.94.114 static with the product. We want the product, and then we also want the jQuery to be loaded. HTTP 167.99.94.114. So we're only loading those, and then like an example XSS that we might want to try to do is I'll do image, and a bunch of do image, and we need two, so we'll call them name equal potion types, name equal potion types, and let me just look at the code that we gotta work with. Potion types, okay, and the ID for one that we want needs to be 1, and the source can look something like, so the source is going to go be injected into here, so we'll just do something like does not exist. And we'll just do does not exist dot JPEG. Then we'll do a anchor, because I think anything after an anchor is not URL encoded. So I'll do closing bracket, and then on error equal bracket alert 1, and we need a closing bracket. I don't think I need a closing bracket, but I'm going to get one because I'm in a source. So what do? Alert 1, and then JavaScript comment. So that way, I think that will work. So the alert doesn't get double mixed up. So anything after this will be commented out. So let's just double check. The source is going to be does not exist.jpg. Then we have a closing bracket. Then we should create an on error attribute, which runs an alert and comments out everything after that JavaScript. So that should give us a simple proof of concept to see if this can't work. So if I forward that to the browser, and what happened? So we got some errors. Referred to load jQuery. Oh, so I must have had a typo. It violates the content security policy script inline 99411 static. Oh, because I didn't set the port number. So why don't I just view the source of this one? So I have it here for reference. And then I'll just resend this. And I will add the port number. 32625. 32625. And we'll try it again. I forgot the headers. Oops. So we'll try that one more time. 32625. 32625. And we have an alert. So with that, now I can essentially run a server and have that maybe send me some interesting information. So what I will do is I'll just run a server locally, http.server on 8000. I'll just check that it's running. And so I've set up a link to this via a service called tunnel.to.dev. So https batchcraft.tunnel.dev. Let's see if I get this to connect. Tunnel.to. So there's the request, and yeah, it's going to show me what's in that directory that I have there. So, and here we can see the request coming through. So we have the URL. So if I go back to this page and we redo this setup, and instead of alerting, we're going to do a fetch. Fetch back to our server, which is here. I think I can remove quotes. It's a JavaScript. Now I remember. So fetch back to our server, and with some variables, we'll say data equals. I can't remember if I need that record or not. Data equals. We'll. I think we could just do document cookie. Because the cookie is already encoded, so it should be URL safe. Because essentially it should just be session equals JWT. So let's see if this works. Oh, I forgot my port numbers. 32625. 32625. And yeah, so we're on the page, and we're about to make a request to my server with the cookie data in it. And so if I hit forward, it's going to actually give me a response. And if I go to my server, I can see data session and equals yada yada yada. So now all I got to do is put this into a request. And make it work. So if I go to view source, I want my image, my description to be this. And I'm going to have to escape some double quotes. So we want 2 images. And product price, and then I want my description or title to be, this one I need to be a bit more, I gotta check what I was working with here. Helpers. So title is going to exist in the content. So I already have meta opening and meta closing. So content is going to be script inline. So I think I just need this because I have meta open content brackets. Then I just want the script to be inline, unsafe inline, and the ones that we need to load, and then edit equivalent. And I don't think I need the closing bracket because that is provided. So I put that in there. We have script and then I need to escape. And description. I don't need to escape that last one. Okay, so I think that should do it. So let's send this. And portion was added, reviewed by admin. Let's see if we got any hits. No hits. Okay, so if we go check it out, let's see if it worked. So here we are, product 8. My content security policy is there. And my images are there. So and yeah, there's my request coming. So if I forward that, failed to fetch, but we should see my session. Okay, so works for me. Now this was really annoying. This was essentially this worked, but the problem is that if we go to the bot has no idea what the external IP address of its service is, and it's not actually. I was talking to the creator of this challenge, and it's not able to even know because it's hidden behind a firewall. So essentially, the CSP policy has to be set to localhost for the bot for it to work for the bot because essentially it wasn't working. So we'll change this to 127.0.0.1 to localhost and 127.0.0.1 to static, and see if this gets us something. And now we got a third one. So if we take this, we put it into our favorite tokenizer. There she is. And so that's how you solve Batchcraft potions. Thanks.